Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talent Smart EQ's LinkedIn Live series, Emotional Intelligence for Your Everyday Life. While everybody's getting comfortable, we would love it if you go ahead and over in the comments section on the right of your screen, let us know where you're dialing in from or where you happen to be today. We'd love to know where you are all from. And I know it takes sometimes about a minute to get people up and running. I'm just going to go around our board before I welcome everybody and just ask everybody where they are calling in from. Dawn, where are you today? You don't have to give us your address, but where are you?
I am in Kokomo, Indiana.
Kokomo? Where is Kokomo, Indiana?
It is a little north of Indianapolis.
Oh, very cool. Cool. That's not what the name of the song is after, right? Kokomo.
No, that's down in the Florida Keys. We're not quite that tropical.
I was going to say, okay, perfect. I was like, wait a minute, this is good. Excellent. Kristen, where are you calling in from?
I am at Lackland Air Force Base, which is in San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio. Love San Antonio. The Riverwalk is a lot of fun down there.
Yes.
And of course, we have Angela. Where are you calling in from, Angela?
I'm calling in from Temecula, California, which is Southern California.
Excellent. Cool. So happy to have you all. So we'll see where everybody else is joining us. But we have a fantastic discussion today. We are going to talk all things emotional intelligence and its effectiveness in the military. Casey, thank you for joining us from Central Texas. And I see a fan of Dr. Rumley's here. Robin, thank you for joining us as well. As we're going throughout here, please jump in with any comments and questions that you have. We would love to be able to answer any of those for you. And also, our producer will, along the way, put in some of our contact information. So if any of you are looking for information on anything you hear us talk about, we'll be happy to get that to you as well. So before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind you all that Talent Smart EQ, we are the world's premier provider of both emotional intelligence assessments and programs around the world. We are based in San Diego, California. I'm David Brzezowski, the Senior Director of Training, and I happen to be based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so excited to be with everybody today. So thank you. I see a couple more of our people coming in here. Oklahoma in the house as well. So let me introduce to you our fabulous guests we have. First off, Angela Young. She is the Client Solutions Vice President for Talent Smart. Coming up on just 3 years, so congratulations early on that. Angela, besides bringing information about this industry, the U.S. Air Force and other military as well, works with clients across the globe. Also, we have Dr. Kristen Rumley. She is the Director of Psychological Health with the Air National Guard in San Antonio, Texas. I made the mistake of putting, I think, in some initial marketing that she was in another part of the country, and she's not. So she's in San Antonio, Texas, bringing EQ to her corner of the world for nearly 2 years now. So welcome to Kristen. And we have Mrs. Dawn Altmeyer, who is the Chief of the Integrated Prevention and Resilience Office at Grisham Air Force Base in Indiana. Previously, Dawn was in the Prevention and Resilience Office at Fairchild Air Force Base since 2013 and was active duty from 1992 to 2013. So Dawn has been leading, get this, emotional intelligence programs since 2016 with almost 2,000 participants. So if anybody's going to have some additional digging of information for us, I think it will be you, Dawn. Thank you so much. Quite the lineup that we have. And thanks, I see Lori from Illinois and Amy from North Carolina. And we've got Tanya from Arizona from the Air Force Base there. Thank you all. And like I said, please do not hesitate to ask us whatever questions. So let me get started. And Angela, I want to start with you and just kind of talk a little bit about setting the stage. You know, like you've been working with the Air Force for pretty much since you walked in the room here at Talent Smart. And I'm just curious about how important you see overall emotional intelligence in the Air Force, but honestly, I think in military in general. What can you share with everybody what that looks like?
Yeah, and thanks, David, for having me today. I would love to be able to set the stage. So to start, a few years ago, General Brown announced 10 airmen leadership qualities would be integrated into their new feedback tool, and emotional intelligence is one of them, which is really excited. So In order for those to properly rate others on emotional intelligence, there really is a heightened focus on training in the emotional intelligence area on a broader scale through all different Air Force bases, Air National Guard. And really, by fostering emotional intelligence among its members, they can really cultivate a more resilient, cohesive, and effective fighting force. If you think about emotional intelligence, it'll really allow Air Force, Army, and Air National Guard members to tackle the challenges ahead. And it is a critical skill that can profoundly impact both their personal and professional lives. And I mean, we've seen that on both sides, working with Dawn and with Kristen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a great piece for everybody who's chiming in today, whether you're in the Air Force, in any sort of other military or anywhere, that this is a skill that you can use not just at work, but gosh, I mean, personal lives. I think you're going to hear that from all of us, just how that has been a part of our journey just as a human as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Dawn, I'd love to hear from you. You have such a robust experience of bringing EQ to the Air Force. Like I mentioned before, 2,000 people have come through your class. How amazing is that? So I want to take you back to the beginning, right? When you first started doing this, so about 8 years ago, right? 2016. So what was it like for you bringing the concept of emotional intelligence to, let's face it, very important people who may not necessarily want to talk about emotions? So what was that like at the beginning for you?
It was actually really exciting because the Air Force had brought in resiliency training, resiliency kind of programs about into 2012, beginning of 2013. And even within there, we don't talk about emotions a lot. We talk about kind of what drives our emotions, but not how to really manage them. And I was actually teaching one of my previous vice wing commanders of resiliency training, and he kept interrupting me and saying, "This sounds like emotional intelligence. This sounds like emotional intelligence." And so I said, "All right, tell me about this." And so I was pretty excited about it. And we started with first line supervisors. So when we first brought it in, it was airmen who were getting ready to go to their airman leadership school class. And the number one feedback we got was, "I wish my supervisor went through this class." So it morphed from these very first line supervisors who were just learning how to be supervisors to opening it up to all supervisors, and then eventually just anybody who wanted to come through it. And it was one of the few classes that we offered that word of mouth. Just people who had attended the class went back and told other people, "Hey, you need to go sign up for this class." And so we didn't have to do any marketing or advertising because the course material and its effectiveness and how easy it was to apply really resonated with the people who came to the class, where they were like, "Hey, this isn't just a lecture. You're learning things, you're practicing things. It's fun, it's engaging." And so it was really exciting getting that momentum going and building.
I love that by word of mouth. You know, we hear that a lot of times in organizations that we work at where this is a part of curriculum. But it's so great to hear that in a place where, like I said to begin with, might be a tough place to sell. We're going to talk about emotions, but not in an emotional setting. We're going to talk about what to do with them. So I love that. Kristen, I would love to ask you, you know, the journey thus far about, you know, a little less than 2 years now, but still, you know, how it has been bringing EQ to your world, and maybe even kind of start and tell everybody how you use emotional intelligence in what you do.
So I think the first thing that helped is when I went through the training, it just, everything made sense to me. So when I became a trainer, it clicked of the why. Like, why should we care about emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
And the main part that I really understood was that effective EQ means mission effectiveness. That with that emotional intelligence, we're going to actually meet the mission and meet it safely and do well at it. So that's kind of how I helped the wing understand why we should be taking this time out of our schedule to learn about this.
I love that. Yeah.
We need to see what would the value be added. I incorporate emotional intelligence a lot in the suicide prevention approach, how really suicide prevention is a public health issue, and emotional intelligence is one of the core things that can help with suicide prevention. When we think about emotional intelligence, the more we have EQ as individuals and teams, the more we can identify risk behaviors, we can address risk behaviors, we can increase safety. It's better for quality assurance. And so understanding that language and using the EQ language is what really helped integrate it into the wing. I think that when we talk about emotions and feelings, people can get a little worried about that. But using the mission language is what really helped everyone understand why this is important. It's gotten to the point where I've been asked to train in groups all over the state of Texas, used emotional intelligence in identifying issues with we have Operation Lone Star in Texas, which is the border mission, and how we address morale and wellness through emotional intelligence. And so even consulting with leaders, consulting with commanders, understanding that emotional intelligence is like a core competency in how we can meet the mission.
Yeah, how powerful though to hear you talk about using this in suicide prevention and also the border mission. I mean, that's just some pretty highly emotional types of topics. So, Kristen, sticking with you just here for a second, like you about a year and a half ago, you were one of the first conversations we had here on LinkedIn Live specifically about military. And I'm just wondering, in that journey since then, what's kind of continued to help convince you that this is really an important part of keeping it within what you bring to your world?
So I think that when we look at history, there will always be some kind of conflict, whether it be a war, whether it be COVID, there's always going to be something. Even as we always have something we're working to overcome, there will always be a challenge. And so when to understand the importance of emotional intelligence is how do we overcome those things individually and as teams, and overcome it with resilience and growth. So for example, in the military, cohesion is so important because the more cohesive a unit is, the more we can overcome a challenge, whether it be problem solving a workplace issue, whether it be a new guidance and how do we adapt. But our adaptability is improved by the stronger we are at emotional intelligence. I see a lot of times trends of like burnout, morale issues, uncertainty, which we will ebb and flow and always see those things. But overcoming them is where I've seen emotional intelligence really be such a key portion to that.
Yeah, and I think what you say is so important, that it's so relatable in any industry you're in, because like I love the whole idea of we really connected to our mission language. Well, any company could do the same thing. And, I've worked with a lot of our clients who happen to be talking about how do we connect the dots here. And I think when you do that, people who work for and with you are a lot better off on that journey to understand how does it connect. For those of you, by the way, who maybe aren't as familiar with emotional intelligence, a really high level teaching moment I'll give everybody is that emotional intelligence is your ability to both recognize and understand your emotions, and then using that to be able to manage yourself and manage yourself within a relationship. So it's all about understanding what emotions are doing to me sometimes. And the real key with emotional intelligence is that it is a skill. It has 4 core skills. And a skill, as we know, is something that we can work on and we can build. Those 4 core skills are so pivotal to us understand what works well for us, where we need to work on. And I think what Dawn and Kristen are talking about here is just really how they've integrated in there. So Dawn, I wanted to circle back to your role in the Office of Prevention and Resilience, because gosh, I think about, we use the word resiliency so often in this world that we are in, probably more so in the past 4 or 5 whatever years. So can you talk a little bit more about it from that perspective? And Kristen, by all means, jump in if there's anything that is hitting you hard that Dawn's talking about. But I'd love to hear your thought on that.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to what Kristen was saying when we use that mission language. Resilient airmen are ready airmen. And so, there are challenges that every human faces just by virtue of being a human. In the military, there are going to be more unique challenges that a lot of other people are not facing, or they don't have experience. They're seeing things, they're doing things that the people who don't serve in the military may not be, introduced to in the course of their lives. And so I think, I came in a long time ago, active duty, we didn't have resilient classes. We didn't have emotional intelligence classes. We didn't have any of these soft skills that would help us face these challenges. And when we can give airmen, capital A, or any military person, these tools, these skills, and I really love with emotional intelligence through Talent Smart, these strategies that can help improve their self-awareness, knowing what their triggers are, knowing what they can handle, knowing who they are, their value system, their belief system, and how that may conflict with others, because we're taking people from all over now the world and bringing them together and trying to make them this one cohesive unit. And there are going to be cultural challenges, are going to be regional challenges. There's just human challenges that come with that. And so having that self-awareness, and then how to manage, how you're feeling, what you've been taught your whole life, and how that may conflict with that the military is now expecting of us, so that we are this one cohesive unit, as Kristen was saying. And so that helps with our resiliency. When we're talking about resiliency being advancing despite adversity, or whenever, how many times we fall, how many times we get back up. I mean, there's a lot of being able to bounce back. I always say bounce through, so that we've learned and grown from whatever adversity. Having the social awareness, that self-awareness, that self-management, and then that relationship where we're using those three skills, I think really helps reinforce those resiliency skills. It's not in conflict. It's actually doing a deeper dive into what we teach in just the basic resiliency training. And I think that's probably why I got so attached to it, because it was practical. It was things I could do that would help me in my job. It would help me raising my children. I always joked I didn't know what was harder, raising 2 teenage girls or being a first sergeant to 450 maintainers. And so it really helped. And I was like, I think my career and my early parenting years would have been much different had I had some of these skills and saw them in action. And so that's where I think that emotional intelligence specific really helps strengthen our resiliency.
Yeah, I love that. Kristen, any thoughts that you wanted to add to that?
So, again, I love talking about how it's mission effectiveness. In the military, we do a lot of climate assessments, climate surveys, which look at risk behaviors. Where are our members at? For example, it might look at workplace violence. It might look at comments in the workplace, sexual harassment, racism, all of that. And so emotional intelligence is a part of the protective and preventative factors for our continuum of harm. So the stronger we are individually and as teams at EQ, we're going to address those risk factors. We're going to understand more when we're seeing something that maybe isn't okay, how to address it, and tune into what it's doing for us and others. So we're going to see EQ you're going to see a decrease in the risk factors for harm. And it's all kinds of harm. It's such a proactive preventative approach. The other thing I've seen with just incorporating emotional intelligence into our mission is a decrease in the help-seeking stigma, that more people are wanting to reach out and seek help when they need it. They're more encouraging of others. It's more of a we're changing our culture. It's a change, and so we are more apt to talk about seeking help when you need it. When 10 years ago, it was really taboo. So my numbers of people seeking help has increased in a good way. We want the increase doesn't mean bad; it can mean good. And so seeing a lot of that as well.
Well, I love that, because that is allowing people from a self-awareness perspective to say, this isn't bad for me to ask for help, better for the alternative that may happen there. So Chris, I'd love to ask you about any outcomes and takeaways that you've experienced so far. What are you hearing? What are you maybe, whether it's people giving you feedback about when you've introduced EQ, or anything else that you've seen in the time that you've been using EQ in your world?
I get a lot of leaders who are so excited about it and who feel that it's been valuable for them to understand their members a little bit more. And again, a lot of our leaders in command roles have to play mom and dad, good cop, bad cop.
Right.
In that, it's helped them get a bird's eye view. I think that it's also, I've gotten great feedback on how much it's helped people in their relationships.
Yeah.
And maybe to have better perspective and understanding of someone when they're interacting with them. So people are loving it. They flock to it. They want this, this info, these skills. People want this.
Yeah. Good. And Dawn, I mean, I'm sure that you have got some to share with us, because with over 2,000 servicemen and women through your programs, what can you share? Maybe a couple of pieces of feedback that you think would be great for everybody to hear.
Yeah, I think that with that word of mouth, that people go back after they've attended a course, whether it's the level 1 or the level 2, and go back and share that with the people that they work with and said, hey, this is a training you actually want to attend. That means that there was something that they found applicable to their lives. Sure. So the number one feedback that we always got on our forms, when we collect the ones in the workbook, was provide food. And so there was very rarely any negative feedback that ever came from the actual course. And so I think that kind of was our biggest kind of takeaway. But more importantly, we had Air Mobility Command paid for a level 3 survey on the actual course curriculum, where they looked at the scores of the people who came through it, but they talked with supervisors. So supervisors did this thing and said, hey, how was it before the airmen came to this class? And then what about afterwards? And it was statistically significant in a positive change in attitudes and behaviors that both the members saw in themselves, but that was replicated in the supervisor's eyes as well. So the supervisors were saying that these people are coming back to the work center and they're doing better. They're engaging with people better. They're working with people better. They're a more respected member of the team. They're more cohesive. They're bringing people together. They're able to kind of diffuse when emotions are ramping up with other people in the unit. And so I think that feedback was really what helped, was that we had tangible surveys that came through that said there was a statistical difference in what we saw in our airmen before they came to EQ versus 6 months later when they got back to their offices.
Yeah, that's so powerful too, because it's one thing for you to think yourself that I've worked with these skills and I've become a little bit better at managing my emotions. But when other people are starting to see that just pays off dividends. Because I think, first of all, if you tell that person, I'm seeing this work out better for you, you're a lot more effective. I think that also makes you want to continue to do that. But I love that that's what you're seeing from leaders. Angela, you probably have a bigger, broader perspective. What are you hearing from people? And maybe not just from the Air Force, but gosh, we're with the Air National Guard, with the Navy. What kind of tidbits can you share about what we're hearing?
Yeah. And you've heard Kristen and Dawn both talk about the cohesion and the mission effective and the readiness. And really, I want to explain a little bit just about how we work with both the Air National Guard and the Air Force. So there are, between the Air Force and Air National Guard combined, we have over 500 certified trainers in all different job titles and duties, but they're all working towards that same mission effectiveness Kristen talks about, that cohesion. I've heard, hey, we're not meant to talk about our emotions. Well, times are changing. The culture is changing. We want them to talk about it post and pre-deployment. They're coming back. They want to be able to talk to their spouse. And the Air National Guard has 3 different buying sides. So we've got our HR advisors, our psych health, which is what Kristen's under, and then our suicide prevention, which she's talked about. And then we're working with the chaplain corps and the violent prevention offices, like with Dawn. And on the Army side, we have over 120 certified Army chaplains. And what they're doing is they're using this content as part of their Building Strong and Ready Teams programs. And the feedback we're getting is, hey, this has been life-changing. It has helped me build a stronger relationship with my spouse by coming back. I've been able to reconnect with my family, which is huge because they've been gone and now they're coming back into what I guess we would consider a normal life versus a deployment life. And what does that look like? And then just one other thing I'll touch on is we've got 7 certified trainers down at the Army Medical Center of Excellence at Fort Sam Houston. And every medic has to go down there to go through our level 1 Mastering Emotional Intelligence course, which will help them better manage their emotions in their day-to-day lives. You can only imagine what they see. And this is really making an impact on their lives.
Yeah, I think you give some great examples of lots of different options, by the way. that for people to bring emotional intelligence into their world, whether it's in the service industry or happens to be in any of the other, many industries we work across the board, we have programs that we have here at Talent Smart, both our level 1, which is kind of introductory, and a level 2 that's a little bit of a deeper dig in. We also have one that's specifically designed for teams. And I think what's great is like the people like Angela who work in our organization help you get the right program, because we have assessments that are different as well. And we have a lot of different options. And so I'm not trying to sound like the salesperson, but it really is an opportunity to understand a variety of opportunities for you to say, what could work in my organization? What's the right thing for us? What's the right assessment to be able to get some of these outcomes that we're hearing, with everybody. So I'm going to give Dawn a little gift, which is a crystal ball. And I want Dawn to look in it right now and say, what's next, right? Like, you've been now 8 years with emotional intelligence. You've seen it be working. If you had the crystal ball, what's next if it was all in your power? And the budget was there as well, by the way. Budget, power,
yeah. Budget, that's the huge one.
I know, right?
So just moving, I just not even 2 months ago yet, just moved to my new installation. And so I would really love to see this momentum carry on and complement some of the things that they're already doing on the installation. But even today, I just talked with one of our group commanders about some of the things that we can offer and what we can do. And he was super excited about it because they are hearing about emotional intelligence through all these different venues and through, different courses, or they'll get little snippets of it. And so I think they're hungry for more. And so being able to I'm on a reserve base now, so it's very different going from active duty where I have access to everyone Monday through Friday to now I get 1 weekend a month. And so how I'm going to kind of roll that out and start introducing these concepts and spread the word, right? We got 2,000 people that came through Fairchild to come through. I probably won't get that many for a while here, but that is my goal, is to keep introducing these concepts and these strategies, whether we're just doing book clubs with the 2.0 book, which is a really great book, or having the actual in-person classes with level 1, level 2.
Yeah, you use a really key word I think is good for everybody to hear, is like it complements other programs as well. Because EQ is not always the answer, right? It's how do I bring this and attach it to some of the other solutions I'm bringing into my organization. And I think that's a real key thing, is like, it can't just be this standalone thing, because it will probably not be the only answer that you need. Kristen, same question for you. You get a different crystal ball. Dawn's going to keep hers, but you have one. What's on your mind if you could see this from your journey?
So I have been working with the military for 15 years. I did 8 years active duty, and I'm about 8 years in civil service. And for 15 years, I've done suicide prevention annual training. And if I had it my way, I would have the annual training, work with Talent Smart to incorporate emotional intelligence into our annual training. Because
I love that.
a lot about protective factors and risk factors, but learning the EQ skills and really understanding them is almost the underlying foundation to suicide prevention and that continuum of harm. And if I had it my way, we would. I've worked hard with approval from leadership to incorporate EQ into annual training. And the irony is this: usually people don't want to go to annual training.
Right.
People want my training, and I've been requested to even give it on the Army side because they, just like Dawn said, they're hungry for it. So if you think about it, I wish that kids in elementary school got taught EQ. And so as the military have this audience, we can create it as part of the norm in trainings.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a question for you in here. So we're putting you on the spot, right? Are you going to offer, and this is from Rob, and thank you for asking the question, are you going to offer the EQ training within Texas during this fiscal year? If so, would it be open to her T5 civilians to attend? What are you thinking about that? We won't put you on the spot to say absolutely and here's the date, but like, what are you thinking?
So Robin, thank you for your question. Robin does what I do for joint service with the state, and
Nice.
she's hungry for EQ also, and the state is hungry for EQ. And we can talk more about creative ways to start getting our Army and Air National Guard more EQ'd up.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, my brother's even on as a retired member of the Air Force. I think I mentioned to you both before. Yeah, and I mean, listen, he's retired now, but this probably could have been really helpful back in the 80s and 90s, and right after 9/11 with a lot of member in our forces too. So yeah, agree with you, brother. Thanks for joining us today, brother. Nice to see you. Angela, I know that we have some really cool things that we're doing here when it comes to the military. What can you share that would be of interest to everybody who's joined us? Because I know that you have some insights into that.
Yeah, I would love to. So now that emotional intelligence is part of the Raider Forum, TalentSmart has developed a brand new NCO EQ Raider course that has been released in the last month. And that is really to help those understand how to properly rate their peers on emotional intelligence. I mean, it's been around for a few years and no one really understands what it is. So this is an opportunity for them to go get certified, understand, and really roll it out to everyone who has to rate folks. But we've really focused, you've heard both Don and Kristen really talk about it the last 30 minutes about the resiliency, and I've talked about the chaplain course. So we really are focused on, hey, how do we look at resiliency through the lens of emotional intelligence? And then how do we expand through that chaplain core, really creating that warrior mindset with EQ as the backbone? I mean, Kristen talked about it being in elementary school. I have 2 little kids. I wholeheartedly agree that it should be taught to them at such a young age. And so many things we're working on. And I'm just really excited to see those being implemented throughout.
Yeah. The Raiders course is such a cool thing because I think sometimes we ask people to share their thoughts about something and people aren't even sure what those things are, right? What are the skills that people are asking us? So this course has been great. We rolled it out once and we've been getting some more questions. So thanks for bringing that up as well. We have a few other pieces of the puzzle that are being built right now too, that everybody can get. Organizations, the military, we're using them on specific topics. And Angela, if you do have access to any of those, so maybe share what those topics are, the 2-hour courses, feel free to add those out loud here. But what's nice about it is our core programs, they are the ones that people get certified on, like Dawn and Dr. Kristen, who both are able to then bring them back to the organization. But then sometimes we will get the request for, hey, how do we connect this? Resiliency is a specific one like that. So what we'll talk about is not just emotional intelligence from a higher level, but we'll connect the dots specifically to that particular that particular topics as well. Thank you for Kevin for this. I work at NROTC Chicago and teach leadership and management, which addresses the topic of EQ. Where can I get more information? Yes, so make sure that our producer will make sure she puts in here some more information about how you can get in contact. It'll be through Angela and through some of her peers as well. But thank you for asking the question for that too. I always love to ask whoever comes on this show with me for the past 2 years, where EQ has affected them in their personal lives too. So Dawn, you've been working with EQ the longest. I'm sure that in 16 years, there's been 1 or 2 things that maybe EQ has helped in your personal life. What could you share with us? Give us a big one.
Yeah, I think it's just everywhere. Just from when I went through the first class, I think the first time I really realized it was working was when my kids, my teenagers, were like, "Who are you and what have you done with our mother?" And so I think just kind of watching how I interacted with people. And I think the thing that resonated was one of the activities in the class is that when people walk away from you, which side of the list would they put you on between the best and the worst of people that you've worked with? And so that has just been my mantra now. When people walk away from me, which side of the list would they put me on? And knowing that if it was the worst, I can go back and repair that and fix it so that we have betters. But even recently, My daughter-in-law has been frustrated with some stuff. And yesterday went out, I took my granddaughter to go to her parents. We picked her up after dance practice. And my daughter-in-law goes, I'm going to need some of that EQ you keep talking about. And she's like, seriously, I need to come to a class. And so just how I just talk about things without just really saying emotional intelligence. And she's like, well, where'd you learn this stuff? I'm like, oh, EQ. But yesterday when she was really frustrated and she just didn't know what to do, she's like, I'm going to need some of this EQ stuff. And so I think that that's where I see it, is that you can just mirror it. And then people are like, I want to be more like that too. And so I think that that's really exciting when I don't have to talk about it. I can just live it. And then people are like, hey, I want that too. I want to be able to be calm and be able to control my emotions and to see things through a different perspective and a different lens. And so I think that for me is really kind of what keeps me part of Talent Smart.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you said something so key, because it is about changing behaviors, right? That's the key. And Robin, I see you've been asking that question. Can you tell a little bit more? That's really what EQ is about. It's identifying that here happens to be what maybe I have some strong emotional intelligence skills, and here's where maybe some of my challenges are. And then what we do is we help people with, here's some strategies to help you strengthen where you might be having a challenge. And it's all about looking at the behaviors of what's working for us and what's not working for us. And I think that you said it so clear, Dawn. It's like when people see things have changed in you and they want to, wow, how can I make that adjustment? I think that's a big win. I want to make sure, I'm going to call to our producer. I think that we need to make sure that both Kevin Francis Riley in Chicago and Robin both receive one of our EQ books, because I think you have had some great questions here. Ladies, are you okay if we send them each a book? Why not, right? There's more information in there about us and about the book. But I mean, I think for both of your questions, you really will get some great information about this. So Kristen, I want to ask you the same question. What about for you? What has EQ done for you?
It's been great personally and professionally. I think it helps me when in all my relationships, take perspective. The nice thing about the way Talent Smart does EQ is you leave with a plan. You leave with a plan and a goal of what you're going to work on. And it's not just, oh, this is what it's about. Okay, bye. It is you're leaving with action. And action items. And so that's been helpful for me to identify where my gaps are. And I just love how Talent Smart does that, because we can all watch videos on EQ,
so
but
true. Yeah.
with action items. I think professionally, it's actually helped me as a clinician. I've another language to speak. Again, with the military, I really have hooked from training that, EQ is about emotions or data, but they don't have to be 100% fact. And so explaining to people in the clinical set, like, hey, let's talk about the feelings and the facts. And then, using that one model, like little tiny piece from Talent Smart, really has helped people understand how their emotions play into their behaviors and their thoughts. And that's just, I think it's helped me with trauma-informed care. It's just really been significant.
Yeah, that's such a great way. And, and I'm so glad you brought up the data piece. That is, we talk about that all the time in the courses that we have here at Talent Smart, about look at emotions as data, because then we can analyze them better. And we can start asking ourselves that key question, why am I having that emotion? So I also want to make sure that I finished answering Robin's question there. The nice thing about our programs is they can be adjusted for the timing that you actually have to be able to use. I mean, we have full day programs, but we help our certified trainers be able to adjust them for shorter versions, for multiple days. What's great about it is if you only have so many hours to do, we can help you figure out what that looks like. Our certifications for our programs, we have every single month certifications, whether they're in person or they are virtually. And that's something that we will absolutely. And so what we'll make sure is that somebody from our team is at least letting you know what your options are, so you can see all of that, so that you can weigh out what that looks like for you here. And then you can be on the next call with Dawn and but you know what? Let's take a look at what Angela's a new mother for the 4th time. I'm certain Angela, that EQ has been in your life somewhere. What's it
Yeah.
been for you?
Yeah. So I do have 4 young girls. Pray for us.
Girls. She just said 4 girls.
4 girls, but I have 2 littles, so they won't count yet in the emotional intelligence realm because they're too little to understand. But my older 2 play competitive sports. So this has really been interesting to start to talk to them about their emotions and what's happening. And I have one that will put her fists together and you can tell she's feeling those emotions and she's getting frustrated. And then the other one just likes to cry a lot. She's very emotional. Yeah. And so it's really helping them understand and talking to them about, okay, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? Let's take a step back. Maybe use one of the strategies, count to 10, just breathe, go cool off. But it's hard. I'm finding it hard to teach them at such the young age, and because they're both in elementary school. So how do we teach them, to help them better understand as they're having those emotions, some strategies that they can take at such a young age to help them better in a competitive atmosphere, such as sports or even in school too.
I think it's a great call too, because it's also what Dawn said too about like, hey, when people started noticing a change in my behavior, and then they maybe ask you, like, what happened to you? Who stole our mother? I love that phrase, by the way. It's great. But I mean, I think for you too, you just starting to be able to say, hey, like count to 10, breathe better. They start doing that as a natural part of their life. All of a sudden they're doing it without thinking about it, right? Because that's really all our goal in emotional intelligence is to keep practicing how to be better at the things that we're not as effective at. And it allows us to be able to, just come across better. And people want to work with people and play with people, with their kids, right, who are more emotionally intelligent out there. Angela, I know we put some of your contact information over in the comments section. Anything else that we that those who have been listening in should know about getting in contact with us?
Yeah, I know our producers dropped my information. They can feel free to call my cell, which was on there, as well as shoot me an email, and I will connect them, whether it's with me or with one of my other counterparts that oversees the Marines or the Air National Guard, and we can start having those conversations on how we can help.
Yeah, perfect. And also, I know our producer is going to be putting in a nice little gift for everybody. It really is for all of you who are interested in understanding a little bit more about what the work we've been doing in the military, what it looks like. So please feel free to download that for yourself. I think that thank you for joining us, Will Rank LaPlante, who was a guest of ours a couple of months ago when we were talking about the financial services industry. And I think you're so right, Will, right? This is sort of very interesting that how you can connect the dots about, wow, the military does this. And it sounds a little similar into some of the things that we're doing in my world too. That's the key about emotional intelligence, is that it is really for everybody. Your emotions are there no matter what you do. And no matter how big your family or small your family, or if you're with somebody or not, emotional intelligence is one of those key skills that could be life-changing in your life. Ladies, I want to thank you all so much for sharing your perspectives. Kristen and Dawn, a really big thank you for your service and all that you continue to bring to your teams, especially with emotional intelligence. And a big shout out. I've seen so many of you who've joined us today from the military. Thank you. This is the beginning, by the way, May 1st of Military Appreciation Month. So we want to send our appreciation to all of those who are in or have been in the military. Thank you for your service. We will be coming back at the end of May. Trying to think of the date. Yes, it is May the 23rd. It's going to be our next emotional intelligence for your everyday life. We have a very special guest who's joining us. She is the author of Emotional Intelligence 2.0. She's also the co-author of the infamous Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book and the founder of Talent Smart. I am talking about the one and only Dr. Jean Greaves, coming back to talk about this 2-year anniversary of this incredible book that is all about emotional intelligence within a team. Also going to have one of my great peers joining us as well, Dr. Sherry Duchak, who has helped deliver some incredible programs about teams to lots of different places. So please join us then. We will make sure that we keep you informed about what's going on with our next shows. We will be not necessarily live here on LinkedIn, But please make sure that you take a look at where we're going to be at next. Our producer is going to be making sure that she has everybody's email addresses to let you know. But we will continue these live discussions every single month as we move forward. Thank you all so much for joining us. Until the next time, please remember that EQ is for your everyday life. We'll see you the next time, guys.